I never thought I'd be posting here, but I guess life's full of surprises. I'm Jake, 34M, and I've been married to Sarah, 32F, for 8 years. We've always had a pretty solid relationship, or so I thought. Things started getting weird about 6 months ago. Sarah began working late more often, always had her phone glued to her hand, and our sex life took a nosedive. At first, I chalked it up to stress from her new job at a tech startup. But then I noticed she was dressing differently, wearing more makeup, and generally seemed happier? Which sounds great, except it wasn't because of anything to do with me. I tried talking to her about it, but she'd brush me off with excuses about work or say I was being paranoid. Classic gaslighting, I realize now. But hey, hindsight's 20/20, right? Little did I know, I was about to uncover a web of lies that would turn my world upside down. And trust me, what I found out is probably not what you're expecting. The bombshell dropped on a random Tuesday night. Sarah was in the shower, and her phone kept buzzing with notifications. Normally, I'm not the snooping type, but something in my gut told me to look. There it was, a string of texts from someone named Emily with a bunch of heart emojis. The messages were explicit, to say the least. Talking about how much fun they had last night, how Emily couldn't wait to taste Sarah again, and plans for their next meetup. My head was spinning. Sarah, my wife, was cheating on me. With a woman. I sat there, staring at the phone, trying to process what I was seeing. That's when Sarah walked in, hair wet from the shower, and saw me with her phone. Her face went from shock to anger in a split second. "What the hell, Jake? Why are you going through my phone?" she snapped. I looked up at her, feeling like I was in some bizarre alternate reality. "Who's Emily?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The color drained from Sarah's face. She opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. She's just a friend from work," she stammered. "A friend you're sleeping with?" I countered, my shock turning to anger. Sarah's eyes narrowed. "It's not what you think. You wouldn't understand." Little did I know, this was just the tip of the iceberg. The next few hours were a blur of accusations, tears, and half-truths. Sarah tried to downplay it at first, saying Emily was just a friend she'd gotten close to. But as I pressed for more details, the story started to unravel. "Okay, fine," Sarah finally snapped. "Yes, I've been sleeping with Emily. Are you happy now?" I was far from happy. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "How long has this been going on?" I managed to ask. Sarah rolled her eyes. "Does it matter? It's not like it means anything. It means something to me," I shouted. "How long, Sarah?" She sighed dramatically. "A few months, I guess." "Did this have happened?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So what? You're gay now?" "Don't be so binary, Jake," Sarah sneered. "I'm exploring my sexuality. It's 2024, for God's sake." I was reeling. "And what about our marriage? What about me?" Sarah's expression softened slightly, but there was still a hint of irritation in her voice. "Look, I still love you. This doesn't change that. Emily's just different. She understands me in ways you can't." I felt like I was drowning. "So what now? Are you leaving me for her?" That's when Sarah dropped another bombshell. "Actually," she said, a sly smile creeping across her face, "I was thinking maybe we could all have some fun together. You know, a threesome?" I stared at her in disbelief. This couldn't be happening. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My wife had just admitted to cheating on me with another woman, and now she was suggesting we have a threesome? It felt like I was trapped in some kind of twisted reality TV show. "Are you serious right now?" I asked, my voice a mix of anger and disbelief. "You cheat on me, and your solution is to invite me to join in?" Sarah rolled her eyes. "God, Jake, don't be such a prude. I thought you'd be into it. Most guys would jump at the chance." Her casual attitude was infuriating. Most guys aren't finding out their wife has been lying to them for months. I shot back. "Oh please," Sarah scoffed. "It's not like I've been sleeping with other men. It's just Emily." Something about the way she said it made me pause. "Wait, is it just Emily? Have there been others?" Sarah's eyes widened for a split second before she composed herself. "Of course not," she said quickly. Too quickly. Emily's the only one. But I could see it in her face. There was more she wasn't telling me. My stomach churned as I realized this rabbit hole might go deeper than I thought. Sarah, I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady, I need you to be honest with me. Right now. Have there been others? She hesitated, and in that moment, I knew my world was about to shatter even further. Sarah's hesitation felt like an eternity. Finally, she let out a long sigh and said, Fine. You want honesty? Yes, there have been others. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. Others? As in plural? How many? She shrugged, avoiding my gaze. I don't know, I didn't keep count. A few women here and there. Maybe 10? 12. My head was spinning. 12. In how long? The past couple of years, Sarah admitted, her tone eerily casual. It started at a work conference in Vegas. I was drunk, curious, one thing led to another. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. 2 years. You've been cheating on me for 2 years with multiple women? Sarah's eyes flashed with annoyance. Oh, don't act so shocked. It's not like you ever satisfied me anyway. Her words stung like a slap to the face. And you never thought to talk to me about it? To try and work on our sex life? She laughed bitterly. Please. You wouldn't know how to please a woman if your life depended on it. I was stunned into silence. Who was this person? This wasn't the woman I married. Look, Sarah said, her tone softening slightly, I know this is a lot to take in. But maybe we can use this to spice up our marriage. You, me, Emily, we could have some fun. I stared at her, trying to process everything. That's when another thought hit me. Wait, have you been having threesomes this whole time? Sarah's face told me everything I needed to know before she even opened her mouth. Sarah's expression confirmed my suspicions before she even spoke. It happened a few times, she admitted, her tone almost defensive. What's the big deal? I felt like I was trapped in some kind of surreal nightmare. The big deal? Sarah, you've been living a completely different life behind my back for years. She rolled her eyes. You're being so dramatic. It's just sex, Jake. It doesn't mean anything. It means something to me. I shouted, my anger finally boiling over. Our marriage vows, our trust, our entire relationship, it all means something to me. Sarah had the audacity to look annoyed. Oh, grow up. Monogamy is so outdated. I was just having some fun. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman in front of me was a stranger. Fun? You call lying to me for years fun? I didn't tell you because I knew you'd react like this, she snapped. You've always been so uptight and jealous. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Was this really how she saw me? How long had she felt this way? I need some air, I muttered, grabbing my keys and heading for the door. Where are you going? Sarah called after me. Out, I replied coldly. Don't wait up. As I slammed the door behind me, I realized our marriage would never be the same again. I drove aimlessly through the city, my mind racing with everything I'd just learned. The Sarah I thought I knew was gone, replaced by this callous, unapologetic stranger. How had I missed the signs? How long had she been lying to my face? I ended up at a 24-hour diner on the outskirts of town. As I nursed a cup of coffee, I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through old photos of us. Happy, smiling faces stared back at me from vacations, date nights, family gatherings. Had it all been a lie? That's when a text from Sarah popped up. Don't be such a baby. Come home so we can talk about this like adults. I scoffed. Like adults? She'd been acting like a hormonal teenager for years, apparently. As I sat there wallowing in my misery, a thought struck me. If Sarah had been so careless with her phone tonight, maybe there was more evidence of her infidelity. I hated the idea of snooping, but I needed answers. I drove home, half expecting to find Sarah gone. But there she was, sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. Oh, you're back, she said, barely looking up. Ready to stop being so dramatic? I ignored her and went straight for her laptop. What's your password? I demanded. Sarah's eyes widened. What? No way. That's private. Private like your affairs? I shot back. Give me the password, Sarah. No. She hesitated, then sighed. Fine. It's Emily Love 69. Happy now? I typed it in, my hands shaking. As the screen loaded, I had no idea the bombshells that were about to drop. As Sarah's laptop sprang to life, I felt a pit in my stomach. Part of me didn't want to know what I might find, but I knew I had to uncover the full extent of her deception. The first thing I noticed was her email. There were dozens of messages from unfamiliar addresses with suggestive subject lines. I clicked on one from Tiffany XO, and my jaw dropped. Hey sexy, last night was amazing. Can't wait for our next girls' night. Winking face. Jake has no idea what he's missing. I scrolled through more emails, each one more damning than the last. There were messages arranging meetups, sharing explicit photos, and even discussing how to keep their affairs secret from their unsuspecting partners. What the hell is this, Sarah? I demanded, turning the screen towards her. She barely glanced up from her phone. Oh, those? Just some friends I've met online. No big deal. No big deal. I was practically shouting now. There are at least 20 different women here. You told me it was only about a dozen. Sarah shrugged. I told you, I didn't keep count. Why does the number matter anyway? I couldn't believe her nonchalance. It matters because each one is another lie, another betrayal. As I continued digging, I found a folder labeled Fun Times. With a sense of dread, I clicked on it. Suddenly, the screen was filled with photos and videos of Sarah with various women in compromising positions. Some I recognized from her work, others were complete strangers. And in some of the videos, there were men too. I felt like I was going to be sick. Sarah, there are men in these videos. You said it was only women. Sarah finally looked up, a hint of panic in her eyes. Wait, I can explain. But I knew that whatever came out of her mouth next would just be another lie. I slammed the laptop shut, unable to look at any more evidence of Sarah's infidelity. My hands were shaking and I felt like I might throw up. Explain. I spat out. How can you possibly explain this, Sarah? You've been sleeping with men too? What happened to exploring your sexuality? Sarah sat up, her face a mix of defiance and irritation. Look, it started with women, okay? But then I got curious about group stuff, and well, things just evolved. Evolved? I echoed in disbelief. You mean you spiraled into full-blown sex addiction? She rolled her eyes. Don't be so dramatic, Jake. It's called being sex positive. Maybe if you weren't such a prude, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. Her words cut deep, but I was too angry to show how much they hurt. So this is my fault now? Because I didn't want to have orgies with strangers? Oh please, Sarah scoffed. Don't act like you're some innocent victim here. I bet you've thought about other women plenty of times. Thinking isn't the same as doing. I shouted. I never acted on it because I respected our marriage. Sarah stood up, her eyes flashing with anger. Well, maybe our marriage isn't worth respecting anymore, she snapped. The room fell silent as her words hung in the air. I stared at her, this woman I thought I knew, feeling like a stranger in my own home. What are you saying? I asked quietly, dreading the answer. Sarah's face softened slightly, but there was still a hard edge to her voice. I'm saying, maybe it's time we faced facts. This isn't working anymore, Jake. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Was this really happening? I stood there, stunned into silence by Sarah's words. The reality of our situation was crashing down around me. So that's it? I finally managed to say. 8 years of marriage and you're just ready to throw it all away? Sarah sighed, looking almost bored. Come on, Jake. Let's be real. Our marriage has been dead for a long time. I was just the first one to admit it and do something about it. Her casual dismissal of our relationship felt like a knife twisting in my gut. And you didn't think to, I don't know, talk to me about it? Maybe suggest counseling? She laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Counseling? Please. What were we going to say? Dear therapist, my husband is a bore in bed, and I want to sleep with half the city? I flinched at her cruel words. Is that really how you see me? As some kind of inadequate loser? Sarah's expression softened slightly, but her words were still sharp. Look, you're a nice guy. You really are. But nice doesn't cut it anymore. I need excitement, passion, adventure. Things you could never give me. I felt a surge of anger. You never gave me a chance. You just assumed I couldn't change or grow with you. Instead, you lied and cheated for years. Oh, don't be so self-righteous, Sarah snapped. I bet if you had the opportunity, you'd have done the same thing. I shook my head, disgusted. No, Sarah. That's where you're wrong. Not everyone thinks like you. A tense silence fell between us. I realized, with a sinking feeling, that this was probably the end of our marriage. But as I looked at Sarah, I wondered if I'd ever really known her at all. So what now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Sarah's response would set the course for the next chapter of my life. Sarah's face hardened, all pretense of sympathy gone. Now we get divorced, Jake. It's obvious we want different things. I want freedom, excitement, multiple partners. You want, well, whatever boring, conventional life you've been clinging to. Her words stung, but I was beyond being hurt by her insults at this point. Fine, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. If that's what you want, we'll get divorced. But don't expect me to make this easy for you. Sarah's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? I gestured to her laptop. It means I have evidence of your affairs. Lots of it. And I'm pretty sure adultery still matters in divorce court. For the first time that night, I saw a flicker of fear in Sarah's eyes. You wouldn't, she hissed. Why not? I countered. You didn't seem to care about hurting me. Why should I care about protecting you now? Sarah's demeanor changed instantly. She stepped closer, her voice turning sweet. Come on, Jade. We don't have to do this the hard way. Maybe we can work something out? I knew that tone. It was the same one she'd used countless times to get her way. But this time, it only fueled my anger. No, Sarah, I said firmly. No more manipulation. No more lies. We're done. I grabbed my keys and wallet, heading for the door. Where are you going? Sarah called after me, a note of panic in her voice. I turned back to look at her one last time. To find a good divorce lawyer. And Sarah? I'd start packing if I were you. I want you out of this house by the end of the week. As I closed the door behind me, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. My marriage was over, but for the first time in years, I felt like I was taking control of my life again. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions and activity. I stayed at a friend's place, unable to bear the thought of being in the same house as Sarah. I found a reputable divorce lawyer, Karen, who listened to my story with a mix of sympathy and professional detachment. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, Jake, Karen said after I finished recounting everything. It's going to be messy. But with the evidence you have, we're in a strong position. I nodded, feeling a strange sense of calm. I don't want to destroy her, Karen. I just want what's fair. Karen smiled grimly. Trust me, with what she's done, fair is going to feel like destruction to her. Meanwhile, Sarah had been blowing up my phone with messages ranging from angry threats to tearful pleas. I ignored them all, communicating only through Karen. When I finally returned home to gather some of my things, I found the house in chaos. Sarah was in the middle of packing, clothes and belongings strewn everywhere. She looked up as I entered, her eyes red and puffy. Jake, she said, her voice hoarse. Please, can we talk about this? I steeled myself against the urge to comfort her. There's nothing to talk about, Sarah. You made your choices. Now we both have to live with them. As I gathered my stuff, Sarah followed me around, alternating between apologies and accusations. I'm sorry, okay? I messed up. But you're not innocent in this either, you know. If you had been more attentive, more exciting. I whirled around, cutting her off. Stop it, Sarah. Just stop. You don't get to blame me for your decisions. You chose to cheat. You chose to lie. That's on you, not me. As I headed for the door with my bags, Sarah made one last desperate attempt. What about the threesome idea? We could still try it. Maybe it would fix things between us. I looked at her, realizing I finally saw her for who she truly was. Goodbye, Sarah, I said quietly, closing the door behind me. As I drove away, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. The road ahead would be tough, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hope for the future. The divorce proceedings were just as messy as Karen had predicted. Sarah hired a shark of a lawyer, and they tried every trick in the book to paint me as the bad guy. They claimed I was controlling, emotionally unavailable, and that Sarah's affairs were a result of my neglect. But Karen was prepared. We had the emails, the photos, the videos, all evidence of Sarah's long-term infidelity and deceit. When we presented this in court, Sarah's face went pale. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The judge was not impressed with Sarah's behavior. In the end, the settlement was more than fair to me. I got to keep the house, my retirement savings were protected, and Sarah was ordered to pay a portion of my legal fees. Outside the courthouse, after it was all over, Sarah approached me. She looked defeated, a far cry from the confident, dismissive woman she'd been that night when everything fell apart. "Jake," she said, her voice trembling. I'm sorry. For everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know that." I looked at her, feeling a complex mix of emotions, anger, sadness, pity, and somewhere deep down, a lingering affection for the woman I thought I'd married. "I appreciate that, Sarah," I said quietly. "I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for." As I turned to leave, Sarah called out, Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me?" I paused, considering her question. "I don't know, Sarah. Maybe someday. But not today." Walking away, I felt like I was closing a chapter of my life. It hurt, but there was also a sense of freedom. I was no longer bound by lies and betrayal. I could start fresh on my own terms. That night, as I sat alone in the house that was now just mine, I allowed myself to really feel everything I'd been holding back. I cried for the marriage I'd lost, for the years wasted, for the trust that had been shattered. But as the tears subsided, I felt something else growing, hope for the future, and a determination to learn from this experience and become stronger. Little did I know, life had a few more surprises in store for me. In the months following the divorce, I threw myself into rebuilding my life. I redecorated the house, erasing all traces of Sarah. I joined a gym, started therapy, and reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with during my marriage. One day, about 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I received an unexpected message on social media. It was from Emily, Sarah's original affair partner. "Jake, I know this is probably the last person you want to hear from, but I think there are some things you should know. Can we meet?" My first instinct was to ignore it, but curiosity got the better of me. I agreed to meet her at a neutral coffee shop. Emily looked nervous as she sat across from me. "First, I want to apologize," she began. "I knew Sarah was married, and I went along with it anyway. I'm not proud of that." I nodded, appreciating her honesty. "Thank you. But I'm guessing that's not why you wanted to meet." Emily took a deep breath. "No, it's not. Jake, there's something you should know about Sarah. She wasn't just cheating on you with me and those other women. She was running a sort of escort service." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "What?" "She would set up dates for herself and other women with wealthy clients. That's how she could afford all those expensive gifts and trips she'd come home with." My mind was reeling. Just when I thought Sarah couldn't shock me anymore, this bombshell dropped. "Why are you telling me this now?" I managed to ask. Emily looked down at her coffee. "Because Sarah's in trouble. She got involved with some dangerous people, and now she's in over her head. She's been calling me, asking for help, but I don't know what to do." I sat back, stunned. Part of me wanted to walk away, to leave Sarah to deal with the consequences of her actions. But another part, the part that had loved her for 8 years, couldn't just ignore this. "What kind of trouble?" I heard myself asking. Emily's response would force me to make a decision that would change everything once again. Emily leaned in, lowering her voice. "Sarah got involved with some high-profile clients, including a local politician. She has videos of him that he doesn't want getting out. He's been threatening her, and I think he might have connections to some really dangerous people." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. This was way more serious than I had imagined. "Has she gone to the police?" I asked, already guessing the answer. Emily shook her head. "She's afraid. If she goes to the police, everything will come out. Her escort service, the blackmail, she could end up in jail." I ran my hand through my hair, feeling the weight of the situation. So why come to me? What do you expect me to do? Emily's eyes met mine, pleading. I don't know, Jake. But you're the only person I could think of who might be able to help. Despite everything, I know Sarah still trusts you. I laughed bitterly. Trust? After everything she did? I know it sounds crazy, Emily said. But she's scared and alone. She needs help and I think you're a good man, Jake. Better than either of us deserved. I sat there, conflicted. On one hand, Sarah had betrayed me in the worst possible way. She had lied, cheated, and destroyed our marriage. But on the other hand, the thought of her in danger, possibly hurt or worse, made my stomach churn. I need to think about this, I finally said. This is a lot to process. Emily nodded, sliding a piece of paper across the table. This is Sarah's new number. If you decide to help, or even if you just want to warn her to be careful, please call her. As I left the coffee shop, my mind was in turmoil. I had finally started to move on with my life, and now this? I knew I had a decision to make, one that could potentially put me in danger or drag me back into Sarah's chaotic world. But could I really turn my back on her if she was in genuine trouble? I pulled out my phone, staring at the number Emily had given me. My finger hovered over the call button as I wrestled with what to do next. After a sleepless night of tossing and turning, I finally made my decision. I couldn't just walk away, knowing Sarah might be in real danger. Despite everything she'd done, I couldn't have that on my conscience. With a deep breath, I dialed the number Emily had given me. It rang several times before a familiar voice answered, sounding small and scared. Hello. Sarah, it's Jake, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Jake? Why are you calling? Emily told me what's going on, I said. About the escort service, the politician, all of it. Sarah was quiet for a moment, then I heard a muffled sob. I've really messed up, Jake. I don't know what to do. I closed my eyes, steeling myself against the urge to comfort her. I want to help, Sarah, but I need you to be completely honest with me. No more lies, no more games. Can you do that? Yes, she whispered. Yes, I can. Thank you, Jake. I don't deserve your help, but dash. You're right, you don't, I cut her off. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. Now, tell me everything. Over the next hour, Sarah spilled the whole sordid tale. The escort service had started as a way to make extra money, but it quickly spiraled out of control. The politician, a married state senator named Robert Thompson, had become a regular client. Sarah had recorded their encounters as insurance, never intending to use the videos. But when Thompson found out about the recordings, he panicked. He said he'd ruin me if the videos ever got out, Sarah explained, her voice shaking. But then he started demanding more videos, more girls. When I refused, he threatened to have me killed, Jake. He said he knew people who could make me disappear. I felt a chill run down my spine. This was even worse than I'd imagined. Have you considered going to the police? I asked. I can't, Sarah said, desperation in her voice. If this gets out, I'll go to jail. And Thompson, he has connections everywhere. I don't know who I can trust. I took a deep breath, knowing I was about to step into something dangerous and potentially life-altering. Okay, Sarah. Here's what we're going to do. I laid out a plan for Sarah, one that would require careful execution and a lot of trust, something I wasn't sure I could fully give her, but had to try. First things first, I said, we need to secure those videos. Where are they? Sarah hesitated. They're on an encrypted hard drive in a safety deposit box. Good. We'll get those first thing tomorrow. Next, we need to find a lawyer we can trust, someone with experience in both criminal defense and dealing with political scandals. I could almost hear Sarah's confusion through the phone. But Jake, I told you, I can't go to the authorities. We're not going to the authorities yet, I explained. But we need legal advice on how to proceed. This lawyer might also have connections that could help us navigate this situation more safely. Sarah agreed, and I continued outlining the plan. We would gather all the evidence, not just against Thompson, but any other high-profile clients who might have participated in illegal activities. Then, with the lawyer's help, we'd approach Thompson with a deal, his silence and safety in exchange for ours. It's risky, I admitted. But it's our best shot at getting out of this without anyone getting hurt or ending up in jail. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Why are you doing this, Jake? Sarah finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. After everything I did to you? I sighed, feeling the weight of our history and this new, dangerous situation. Because despite everything, I don't want to see you hurt. And because taking down a corrupt politician who abuses his power isn't a bad silver lining. We agreed to meet the next morning to start putting our plan into action. As I hung up the phone, I couldn't help but wonder if I was making a huge mistake. Was I being naive, falling for Sarah's manipulation once again? Or was I doing the right thing, helping someone in genuine danger? I knew the next few days would be crucial, and one wrong move could have devastating consequences. As I tried to sleep that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was stepping into a storm that would change my life once again. The next morning, I met Sarah at the bank where she kept her safety deposit box. Seeing her in person for the first time since the divorce was strange. She looked tired and scared, a far cry from the confident woman I'd known. We retrieved the hard drive without incident and headed to meet the lawyer I'd contacted, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Melissa Goldstein, who specialized in high-profile cases. As we sat in Melissa's office, laying out the whole sordid story, I watched her face carefully. To her credit, she didn't flinch at the details of the escort service or the blackmail. This is a powder keg, Melissa said finally. Senator Thompson has a lot to lose, which makes him dangerous. But it also gives us leverage. We spent the next few hours strategizing. Melissa suggested we compile a dossier on Thompson, not just the videos, but financial records, phone logs, anything that could corroborate Sarah's story. We're not going to blackmail him, Melissa explained. We're going to give him a choice, resign quietly, or risk everything coming to light. As we left Melissa's office, Sarah turned to me, her eyes brimming with tears. I don't know how to thank you. I held up a hand, stopping her. Don't thank me yet. We're not out of the woods. Over the next few days, we worked tirelessly to gather evidence. I reached out to some IT friends to help us crack the encryption on the hard drive. Sarah contacted some of the other women involved, convincing them to share any information they had on Thompson. But just as we thought we were making progress, things took a dark turn. One night, as I was leaving my house to meet Sarah and Melissa, a black SUV screeched to a halt in front of me. Two burly men jumped out. Mr. Anderson, one of them said gruffly. Senator Thompson would like a word with you. My heart raced as I realized our plan had been discovered. As they ushered me into the SUV, I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake getting involved. What had I gotten myself into? The SUV sped through the city, its tinted windows preventing me from seeing where we were going. My mind raced, trying to figure out how Thompson had discovered our plan. Had Sarah betrayed me again? Or had we simply underestimated the senator's resources? After what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes, we pulled up to a nondescript office building. The two men escorted me inside and up to a plush office on the top floor. Sitting behind a massive desk was Senator Robert Thompson himself. Mr. Anderson, Thompson said, his voice smooth and controlled. I think it's time we had a chat. I tried to keep my voice steady. Senator Thompson. I assume this isn't a casual meet and greet? Thompson's smile didn't reach his eyes. Let's cut to the chase. I know what you and Sarah are up to. I have to say, I'm impressed by your loyalty to your ex-wife. Misguided but impressive. This isn't about loyalty, I countered. It's about doing the right thing. Thompson leaned back in his chair. And what exactly do you think the right thing is here? Ruining my career? Destroying my family? I met his gaze. You did that yourself when you decided to abuse your power and threaten innocent people. The senator's facade cracked for a moment, anger flashing in his eyes. Innocent? Sarah and her little operation were far from innocent. Maybe not, I agreed. But they didn't deserve death threats. Thompson stood up, walking around his desk. Here's what's going to happen, Mr. Anderson. You're going to hand over all the evidence you've gathered. You're going to convince Sarah and the other girls to keep their mouths shut. And in return, I'll make sure you all walk away from this unscathed. I felt a surge of anger. And if we don't? Thompson's voice turned icy. Then I can't guarantee anyone's safety. Not yours, not Sarah's, not the other girls. I have reach you can't imagine. As I stood there, facing down this powerful, corrupt man, I realized I had a crucial decision to make. One that could determine not just my fate, but Sarah's and countless others. I took a deep breath, ready to give Thompson my answer. I looked Senator Thompson straight in the eye, summoning all my courage. I'm afraid I can't do that, Senator. In fact, you're the one who's going to listen carefully now. Thompson's eyebrows shot up, surprise replacing his smug expression. While you were busy trying to intimidate me, I continued, you failed to notice that this entire conversation has been recorded. I pulled out my phone, which had been discreetly capturing audio the whole time. Your threats, your admission of involvement with Sarah's operation, everything. Thompson's face paled. You're bluffing, he sputtered. Am I? I countered. Are you willing to take that risk? Because right now, this recording, along with all the other evidence we've gathered, is being sent to multiple news outlets and law enforcement agencies. If anything happens to me, Sarah, or anyone else involved, it all goes public immediately. The senator slumped back against his desk, the reality of his situation sinking in. Here's what's going to happen, I said, echoing his earlier words. You're going to announce your resignation, citing personal reasons. You're going to leave Sarah and the other women alone. And you're going to seek help for your obvious issues with power and control. Thompson nodded weakly, defeated. As I left his office, I felt a mix of relief and disbelief. It was over. We'd won. In the following weeks, true to his word, Senator Thompson resigned. Sarah and the other women were left alone, free to move on with their lives. Sarah tried to reconcile with me, claiming she'd changed, but I knew better. While I forgave her for my own peace of mind, I knew we could never go back to what we were. As for me, the whole experience changed me profoundly. I realized I was stronger and more capable than I'd ever given myself credit for. I'd stood up to corruption and won, all while maintaining my integrity. In the end, I learned that sometimes the greatest challenges in life can lead to the most significant personal growth. While I wouldn't wish my experience on anyone, I came out of it wiser, stronger, and ready to face whatever life might throw at me next. To anyone facing betrayal or seemingly insurmountable odds, I'd say this. Trust in yourself, stand up for what's right, and remember that even in the darkest times, there's always a path forward. You're stronger than you know. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for watching my videos, sharing them, and supporting me along the way. Your views, comments, and likes are the driving force behind my passion to create captivating and unexpected stories. Every tale I share is more than just a plot. It's a journey of emotions, lessons, and reflections that we experience together. Your engagement brings life and soul to this channel. Thank you for sticking with me until the very end of each video because the finale of every story is where the real impact lies. I promise to continue delivering twists and turns that surprise, inspire, and resonate with your hearts.